There's a recent article in tabletmag.com by Tova Rose about ex-frum memoirs. It's a very good article, and it discusses how this has become very trendy in recent years for people from background to publish their memoirs. And it's actually not just memoirs, as noted in the article. It started out with Unchosen, which is actually a documentary. Right? It documents how people on the fringes of the community are not necessarily happy, and they're speaking out to somebody that they can confide in, such as the author, Hello Winston. And so that was a very popular book, beyond any expectations. It actually didn't even start out as such. She was supposed to be pursuing documenting the life of women in the community, but instead it turned into something else. So that was the first one, and then came several others. In 2008, there was one by 2007 actually. There was Shalom Auslander's and Shalom Auslander's book Foreskin's Lament, and then in 2008 there was one, The Rabbi's Daughter, and then of course came Deborah Feldman's famous book Unorthodox, followed by two other fictionalized accounts, biographical accounts by Hush by Judy Brown, and this other one, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Okay, so the two or three outstanding ones from the list that I just mentioned is Auslander's book, which has influenced many people, both who are leaving the community and on the outside. I mean, it's been very widely received critically. And Hello Winston's book is also is almost like a classic for people who are studying, if they're in college and they're studying the Hasidic community. It's a must-read. And of course, Deborah Feldman's book. These are the three most successful books. So in terms of, as you can see, in terms of a memoir, the most successful book is obviously Deborah Feldman. And it seems that, and the two books that the article mentions are, the two forthcoming books are Shulem Deen's book, which doesn't have a name yet, and Leah Vincent's book called Cut Me Loose. So these books are also memoirs, and it seems quite plausible that they're basically hopping on the bandwagon of Feldman's popularity in this field. So they're saying, if she can do it, so can I. Ain't I better than she? So that's basically the attitude which is driving them forward. So the question is this assertion correct? Is it true that they are as good, or perhaps better, than Feldman? And there's no doubt that, they don't get along. I mean, this clique, the Vincent/Deen clique, doesn't get along with the Feldman types. It's complicated. It's personal, it's political, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But one thing is certain, that they're trying to imitate her model and seeking success in this field. So the question is, will they achieve it? So here's my opinion on this. Regarding Vincent, I'm pessimistic. I don't think that she has a compelling story. I think that she is just by nature, from what I've heard, I've listened to her TV talk show, being interviewed by whoever, and in other speeches that she's given publicly, she's highly scripted. Like, she has talking points, she has terminology that she uses, and she also has this florid vocabulary designed to both impress and to evoke. And ultimately, I think that the audience sees it as a show, and it could work in certain places. Like when you need a extremely positive public image, like for formal occasions, it works. But it doesn't work when it comes to connecting with the audience at their level. Like, it seems too aloof. And so that's why I think that when it comes to writing a book, formalism is your enemy. Okay, you need to really be able to connect with the reader on a very low level, connect with their feelings, connect with their emotions, and being able to portray not just the lifestyle and the gut-wrenching experiences that you're going through, but also your genuine reflections about it. And here's the thing about her: she doesn't have any genuine reflections, and in fact, her entire account is actually blown out of proportion. She didn't suffer all these sufferings that she claims she did. She exaggerates virtually every single detail of her story. For example, she was thrown out of her house. I mean, obviously her parents deny that, and and I'm OTD, but I'm not going to side with her version of events just because she's OTD. Okay, so I'm not like that. And but regardless, it is plausible to believe. I mean, not knowing if it's just her word against their word, then I would just simply say the plausible thing to believe is that the parents had a certain. I mean, you're living under my roof, so I have certain rules that you have to follow living in my house. And I'm sure they gave. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that they gave her plenty of room to correct her path, and they exhorted her to not behave in a manner that would be unacceptable to them, that would reflect negatively on their family and set a negative example on other members of the family. And I'm sure that she ignored those warnings and she chose to go on her path. And there's nothing, you have to live up to the consequences. You can't just demand to have your cake and eat it too. Okay, if you're going to choose this lifestyle, then that's the consequence. The consequence is you can't live in the community. You can't live with your parents anymore. And that was taken for granted by me when I left. I mean, of course I moved out. There was no two ways about it. There wasn't even a hava minute. There wasn't even a notion of possibility that I might be able to stay, or I might be even willing and wanting to stay. Now, the fact that she was only 16 is, again, it's not convincing. You could have waited. You didn't have to rebel at 16. And if you did choose to rebel at 16, if you're independent enough to rebel at 16, then you're independent enough to survive. So don't give me that bullshit that you were homeless. Okay, and I don't believe that. She was not homeless. Okay, somebody who doesn't have a home isn't necessarily homeless. Okay, there are various friends and colleagues of mine who have also struggled with finding apartments, and they just crash at a friend's, etc. And this is not called homeless. Okay, so, and as far as her, and then she tells the story of her abuse, that she was raped, which is of course also an exaggeration, and especially since she has positioned herself, according to her own account, in that environment. Like she, according to her own claim, she pursued a promiscuous lifestyle. She mentioned some prostitution or something. So so if you're going to go down that path, then you can't later claim, oh, I was raped. Especially on a major keynote speech, when you only have 5 minutes to talk, and you got to summarize and encapsulate what is it, the challenge. What is this major challenge of going off the derech? Yes, I got raped. Okay, that's typical. That's supposed to be representative of what people typically go through when they leave. So this is, I'm very troubled by this, and I'm troubled because I know the circumstances of people who leave intimately, and she is masquerading and pretending to be a victim when she in fact is the least victimized in the range of possible victimizations. And another thing I should point out is that there are two attributes of hers that do not lend themselves to the real victimization that occurs. And that is, one, that she's a woman, and it is quite well known that women suffer less in terms of isolation, and also, most importantly, in their quest to transition to secularism, they have it a lot easier because they already are exposed to a much wider secular education, and they speak a native English much more commonly than their male counterparts. And so don't sell me this cock and bull story that this was a majorly grievous transition for you. So and the other thing is that she grew up Lithuanian. Okay, that's another factor. And the Lithuanians also are famously more open to, like, they acculturate just a tad more than their Hasidic counterparts. So once again, they speak English often, they dress in a little bit more modern, if you can say that. I mean, they still wear their hats, but the hat is a little more less conspicuous, less outlandish than the Hasidic hats. So yeah, and so her story is not convincing at all. And so I'm not predicting, and the truth is that, I don't like her. I'm not going to make any bones about this. I don't like her personally. But at the same time, I don't think that she's going to succeed. And I don't want her to succeed either. Because she's representing the OTD community in a bad light, in a false light. And she's not telling the truth. And I don't want that. I don't like people who lie. So that takes care of her. Now, as far as Shulem Deen goes, Shulem Deen is a whole entire different story. Even though they are close friends and they're both intimately involved in footsteps, Deen is first of all, he is genuinely a good writer. Okay, he writes from the heart, and he has a very engaging style. Like, he knows how to structure a story, what comes first, what comes later. And he doesn't just make it up in order to suit the reader, like Leah Vincent does. He has a real story, and when I read it, I can imagine him being in his square environment, undergoing the ordeals that he's portraying in his writing, and so I respect him a lot more. And I also consider him also he doesn't exaggerate. And he doesn't try to use turgid language, bombastic language that's just designed to show off. And so I think that his book overall would be much more worth reading than Vincent's book. Of course, I'd be reading it critically, and I'd have plenty to say, but I am seriously looking forward to his book. And I think that his book will have a positive effect both on informing people, whether they're on the fence, whether they're in the community or outside the community, just telling them both about the Hasidic community and about the ordeals of leaving the community. So I think he's doing a favor to the OTD community by publishing his book. Which is why it bothers me somewhat that his book hasn't been published yet. And so we keep being told that it's coming, but we haven't seen it yet. And so my speculation is that he's having some form of writer's block, but in some way this is actually good news, because I think it's better for him to be patient and wait until he can recollect his thoughts and feelings and get it together to write in a compelling and engaging way, rather than just give it short shrift and produce a product that doesn't do justice to the cause. So in a way, I'm actually gratified that he's taking his time and he's waiting for the right moment. Sometimes, this is a cyclical thing. Like, sometimes you just don't connect with the whole thing, or you feel pressured to the various things. And over time, the pressure subsides, you kind of give up, right? You let your guard down, and now you can start writing again. So maybe he'll undergo that. So let's hope and let's wait and see. So to summarize, I am not very optimistic not optimistic at all, in fact, about Vincent's book, but I am optimistic about Deen's book, and let's wait and see how it goes. Yeah.